This episode of Watch Out for Fireballs is brought to you by our patrons such as Sam Lynn, Megan Krantz, and Let the Rocks Fall. If you'd like to join them, head on over to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. We can only do this because of our patrons, and we really appreciate each and every one of you. So again, that is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs Dispatch, our monthly Q&A listener response game announcement episode.
Yeah, where we give the cruelest month a merciful goodbye.
It's hunting season.
Oh, don't get caught, April. Don't get caught.
Yeah, don't get caught. Don't be caught slipping.
We're just this is going to be an all questions episode because y'all are prolific when you write in, and also we've got a jam-packed lightning round as well because we didn't get through all those.
Yes, it's also just in behind the curtains. I'm having a brain glycogen day. I'm having a day where my brain just being slow. Got case slow brain. After this, I'm going to go do some manual labor. Yeah, and that's what I'm fit for right now. I put me on the Mines of Mars. Today I'm having one of those Minds of Mars day.
Yeah, get the blood flowing. Get your brain right for tomorrow.
Just today's basically a wash.
Yeah,
I know it's early. I'm just giving up, and then tomorrow things will get better.
Sometimes a winner skips a day. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and get us started here with a comment. And ordinarily we don't read praise, but this is very sweet, and it's not for us, so we're going to. Limorek says, just a small piece of praise for Gwen. It's your pod anyway, so feel free not to read, but a small compliment by way of an anecdote. When Best Quality Vacuum was new, I'd have it in my podcast playlist to listen to while working, and this awesome guitar riff would start up, and I'd think, what the heck is this? What podcast has this cool guitar? And then I realize and think, oh yeah, BQV. I should look up who did the music for this and see if they have other music. Then I heard you mention offhandedly on another cast that it was Gwen. Oh, the new producer we saw on the latest Duck stream. Awesome. Go multi-talented Gwen. So does Gwen also have more music, like a SoundCloud page or something? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Gwen's in a band.
Yes.
And they're on Bandcamp. Bandcamp is a different website.
That's Andy Cap's cool brother.
it's where all the bands lie to each other. But they're on Bandcamp as a trash sound conglomerate, and they're going on tour here coming up. Yeah.
Take a look on all social media feeds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Gwen did the theme for Orb as well, and has done a few, occasionally when we've had a variant theme here on WOFF. She's done a few of those. Just multi-talented is right.
Very talented. Yeah. And she'll hear this because she'll edit this, but we'll also pass it along.
Yeah. Hi, Gwen.
Hey, Gwen.
Moving on to game questions, Kyle asks, in a recent episode, y'all mentioned the idea of food companies engineering food products to be addictive and such. I think this gives them way too much credit. My wife has worked for a bunch of big brands, and I work in food marketing. The reality is that most of the folks in lab coats are too busy trying to make the food cheaper or longer lasting. Meanwhile, the executives really only care if the revenue is getting bigger faster than costs. The idea of longer lasting applying to a bunch of food, just picturing like an all day Cheeto.
Oh yeah, like an all day business ollie. Just a Cheeto you eat all day, eats like a meal. Like a big Euro tower, but it's a Cheeto tower.
Yep.
And everyone has a gnaw when they come in the front door.
It starts out as a breakfast Cheeto at the top, and at the bottom it's your midnight snack.
There's some eggs in the top, and the bottom there's ice cream. Yeah.
Oh man. Notions like, quote, craveability come from the advertising side, where we mostly sell the second best ideas that come from teams of drunk 25-year-olds who have been locked in a conference room for 10 hours. Even food sensory studies are based on on a single serving size, not repeat consumption. I have a textbook on it. Does it matter that the reality doesn't match the narrative if the outcome is the same? And how do we make similarly inaccurate attributions to video game companies as sinister entities?
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry for swerving into your lane there. I mostly say the guys in lab coats making sure you like that food forever because that is an Aquid reference.
It also comes up in Freaks and Geeks. Like
Mhm.
it comes up in a couple different pop culture things.
Yeah.
There's something that makes, there, if it's not the guys in lab coats doing it, there's something that makes us like look at a McDonald's cheeseburger and
Mhm.
like whatever the thing in your brain that lights up
Mhm.
when you eat that and your brain's like, oh, this is good. This will sustain me through this harsh winter. I do think that that's probably preyed upon, but I definitely get the point that like,
Yeah.
the making it like bottom line, like
Yeah.
that's obviously going to be the most important thing.
It's fun to think that there is like a sinister agency behind what is going on, because the actual answer is we're the ones who make sure that this food is always around.
Well,
Just
and making food
our
cheaper and
demand
longer lasting is kind of sinister as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle kind of said it's not that sinister, and then posited something way more sinister.
But it's like
no shade. But
yeah. I don't want to blame the electorate either, but like, I don't know, we've not necessarily gotten together and gotten a lot of political will around like corn subsidies,
No.
Like, but yeah, it's more complicated. And with games, like I don't know, there's no conspiracy that gives us half finished stuff that is put out, or just kind of big map kind of things. Like, yeah, they're like psychologists who work and consult on these things, but game companies are responding to demand a lot of the time.
It's quite literally trying to make games cheaper and longer lasting.
Yeah,
like it's the same thing. Like
yeah.
this whole it's the same capitalism behind both.
Yeah,
it's how businesses work. So it's not a sinister entity that's like saying they're like, ha ha ha, I'm doing this because it's worse.
Yeah.
They're doing it because their value is not in art.
Right.
They're not attempting to create the best art. They're attempting to make the thing that can wring the most money out of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hence whale hunting, pay to win,
Yes.
game as a service kind of things. Just like everything, it is a system of incentives that are perverse and warp the product and us in turn.
Yes. Yeah. Austin says, I'm really looking forward to something light and short, yet still immersive, to serve as a palate cleanser between FromSoft games without feeling like a huge quality dip. I beat Elden Ring and Sekiro, then started Dark Souls, and didn't even get through the first hour of the game before I realized I needed a break from the dense, high difficulty, long-form kind of campaign. Everything I find is either not satisfying fantasy-wise, not visually gripping, I know it's uncool, but I want great graphics in whatever I play next, nothing retro, and just really feels like it's a game with too few verbs and is super fucking existential. I know I sound impossible to please, I'm a gamer after all, but the main things are the beauty of the verbs and something light. So we have a recommendation for something light that has the beauty, the verbs, and is not retro.
What I'm noticing from Austin's question here is, if you want something fantasy themed that is, a big dumb game, you're just not going to get it. Fantasy themed always comes with the freight of, oh yeah, it needs to be 100 hours long, infinitely replayable, like Skyrim kind of stuff, right?
Or retro. Like
right.
there's like Phazanadu.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's old stuff, but if you're looking for something modern, light fantasy that isn't 1,000 hours long, so not like replayable, not like a roguelike kind of thing. That's hard to find. Like, I don't think that it sounds too hard to please. It's just, it's a tricky set of constraints.
There's that one game with a real Teflon title that was just recently announced, like Immortals of Aver Kingdom Lawn Stan.
Kingdom of Amalur?
No, different thing.
No. Immortals of Kingdom?
Yeah, it's like Immortals of something, where like the remit is, we want to make a big dumb Call of Duty campaign, but it's magic instead of guns and dragons instead of helicopters.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like literally just announced like a week or two ago. Seems fine, whatever. But like that is like the only thing that I can think of. You know, you could go like orthogonal to this. Like, have you played the Order 1808 or whatever that is?
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's like a 3-hour long Victorian werewolf game, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's also a thing too where the hard part of this question is that I don't typically, when I'm looking for a short palate cleanser between these big things, I go roguelike for these because it feels complete. For me, I try to get immersed in another roguelike where that's actually not a light game. It's just every individual run of it is light.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a tricky thing. Like this specific release valve that Austin's looking for is served differently depending on your gamer type.
Shit, boot up Oblivion and then just do the Dark Brotherhood quest.
Yeah, but again, retro. The graphic like has to be modern and pretty. That's the tricky thing.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that Oblivion's not retro? Oblivion's retro? I'm sorry. I was in college when that came out, sir.
All-time ugliest sin games. The way it's ugly is very funny to me.
Yeah.
One of the very few games that fires my lol, this sucks, I love it thing.
I just love the faces. Just sometimes somebody will post a screen grab of an Oblivion face, and you're like, "Yeah, give me that. Yeah, give me that smashed in face."
Fucking garbage. It's like something in a human Pekingese, like the dog. You know, the Will introduced me. This is neither here nor there, but it reminds me of wanting a break. Will introduced me to a great phrase because I was talking about finishing Norco for the show, and then we just did the Sexy Brutale and the Quarry, and we got Pentiment coming up. Spoiler for the end of the episode, but just saying that after that, I would like to have a break from like narrative heavy mechanics light games. Like I feel like we've done too many in a row. And Will said, you know, he hasn't finished Pentiment because he had it has a lot of giving a shit overhead. And giving a shit overhead is a great phrase for like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just need to not give a shit as much. Yeah. So yeah. I understand wanting a break from a giving a shit overhead.
Yeah.
You know, but my release valves for that are different.
That's pretty versatile actually, because I would say that's the reason why I haven't like started watching Succession or any number of like prestige drama shows. Like,
it's a really great phrase for the like I can't take anything new on right now. Like, which is a thing where I have complex feelings about. Like, I can't watch a new show right now. It's just TV. It's one of the most passive forms of entertainment there is. I'm just going to get invested in a whole world and universe of characters and stuff. And that just sounds, I have to care about that.
Yeah.
And I can't, I'm out of care right the second, you know, all my care is tapped. All my Paper Mario badges are used up. You know, I don't want to unequip the thing that widens my timing window.
Yeah.
You know, for jumps.
I rely on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Monster Nuggets writes, yeah, good luck. It's rough out there for that very particular constellation of things you're looking for. Monster Nuggets writes, well, I doubt it will be covered on WOFF due to the multiplayer-centered forever game mechanics. I was genuinely curious if either of you had ever played Deep Rock Galactic. It recently came to PS4 as of last year, and it has been one of the most exhilarating games I've played in a while. The lore is charming, the gameplay is a mix of frenetic and calming, and the community is one of the most supportive and welcoming I have ever had the pleasure of being a part of. I would like to hear either of your takes on it, and would love to see you both on Hoxes, Rock and Stone. I don't know what Hoxes are.
Yeah, I didn't play long. I have played that game. I like that game, but not enough to internalize the reference.
Right. I know the Rock and Stone thing.
Yes. I don't remember. I don't know what Hoxes is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It's neat. It's just a squad-based multiplayer game, and I always end up playing those for like 5 hours, you know, over the course of a few games, and then just kind of not touching them because I don't gaming solitary activity for me. But I like it. I admire it. I think it's neat. I had a lot of fun with it the times I played it.
We did a good sized chunk of it on Duckstream last year. Me and the level folks minus Jala for that particular one, and it's good. Like I like the classes have really neat distinctions. I love the engineer where you're making the platforms and stuff. You know, And it's the kind of game that I probably wouldn't like pick up and start trying to figure out myself, but I really enjoy like having at least two people in the party who know what's going on, so I can just kind of turn my brain off and follow orders, and just be
Yeah.
like, I'm helping. Uh
It's
kind of deal.
it takes a really cool game design loop that we see in bits and bobs in other games and makes it a primary thing, which is going into a place in safety and then having to backtrack under duress, which is a really interesting or relative safety, which is a really interesting mechanic. Like there's shades of that, and like that's how Mortal Shell did all its dungeons. If you recall, like you had to, you made your way through and it was a regular dungeon, but things got worse and you had to make your way back after having familiarized yourself with the space. And that's like a minor game design trick that happens all the time. Playing Resident Evil 4, the remake, you go through, an area and it's real quiet, but really it's just there so you can see the geometry. So like when you get chased, you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah.
It's real cool to centralize that gameplay concept, I think.
It's a real economical way to design a game too, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool game. It's really cool.
Yeah.
In favor. Alex says, I've recently gone down a strange rabbit hole of ARGs and other oddball marketing / advertising for video games. It's really fascinating reading about the lengths a company will go to spread awareness about a game. See pretty much any of Acclaim's marketing stunts circa 2001. Hilariously terrible failures of viral marketing like All I Want for Christmas is a PSP, and the absolutely wild shit like the Trials Evolution Easter egg. Do you have any viral marketing campaigns ARG that you find to be memorable or even enjoyed? Have you ever played along with one, or just do you watch from a distance, or do you try to ignore them? I know Cole has a background in advertising. Did the company you work for ever try anything like that? How is the Duckfeed ARG going? Will is in charge of that.
Yeah, nobody's found a single clue. Will's really good at making these things.
So he did one and somebody figured it out.
Oh yeah,
he did one in Guppy. Yeah, somebody got the answer. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he's a little puzzle boy. He's a guessing lad. He loves that shit. Happy birthday, Will, as we're recording this.
Happy birthday, Will. Yeah. Yeah. It's so no company I ever worked for like had us on an ARG or anything. We were more of a video production company, and they tried to pitch us and tried us to get to do a bunch of like content marketing kind of stuff, and just like, no, I'm here to write videos, guys. It was a mess of a company. But not a huge ARG guy. I think that I got that out of my system by following the I Love Bees stuff and the run up to Halo 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And infamous one.
Yeah. And obviously, following the Frog Fractions stuff from afar. Jim and team did an amazing job of making that really entertaining to both read about and, participate in, is the sense that I got. I never participated, but it was fun to read about.
Yeah, I that's the one I'm most familiar with because Jim reached out, there's a part of it in the book, in Souls of Darkness that is related to it. But it's a thing. This is gonna make me sound very lame. I never know when these are happening.
Nope.
I don't. I only read about them like a decade later.
Yeah,
for the most part. Like I had no idea what I Love Bees is. I just just missed it, and then I just read about it later, and everyone's, oh yeah, I remember the I Love Bees thing. Not me. I got nothing.
Not even with like Marble Hornets kind of stuff like that. Was real ARG.
That was ARG. I got into that after it was already basically done.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't a decade after, but it was after it. So I could just look at a wiki and be like, here's the tweet. The reference is this, and put it together. The closest thing to an ARG that I follow now is the On Cinema universe.
I was going to say that because you mentioned the tweet in the wiki. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the closest thing that I actually into. I'm interested. This is very similar to the Deep Rock Galactic thing. I'm interested. I think this is cool. I always miss it. And I don't have a brain for it. Like this kind of puzzle, like, oh, there's this weird sound. If I take this and isolate it and slow it down and reverse it, it gives me a web address, and that web address has coordinates. If we go there, there's a doll buried, like that kind of thing. I just don't have a brain for it.
Yeah.
So I like reading about it though.
Yeah.
I am.
Lucky writes, it's been several years since I played Mark of the Ninja, but I remember having a pretty good time with it. The game really made me feel like a badass ninja. Thinking of other games involving stealth, it makes me realize the importance of information. Not just how it's presented to the player, but how the player finds information. A lot of the games I'm familiar with fall on one of two sides in the approach to stealth and information. Either it's trial and error, where you just have to try and blindly sneak through to places without getting caught, or it's more of a puzzle, where they give you all the information you need about the pieces, and it's your job to figure out which tools to use in which places in order to succeed. As someone who hasn't played any of the Hitman games, is that series a good example of a happy medium?
I don't think there's a whole lot of trial and error in Hitman if you don't want there to be.
Yeah.
Hitman is something where you can observe most things and get the information in advance. It's just whether you want to. And I think the cool thing about Hitman is that it ends up being a little bit of a happy medium, because you'll run into a limit of how, like, you'll think you have a full picture. There's more information available, but you're ready to go, you know, and then something will go wrong, and that gives you space to improvise, you know. But if you sit down and just like watch it, the information's there. You know, there's probably a way to play through that and just kind of, you know, be with enough observation and kind of care, do really, really well without a lot of failing in advance. I just don't have that gene, and I think it's fun to fuck up in it.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of lands at kind of a happy medium, but I think that it also has the capacity to be something that will give you the information.
I think the more distance we get from it, and we even remarked on this just when we were tabling at Midwest Gaming Classic, but like Hitman, the World of Assassination, you know, that trilogy, like obviously there are like low point missions in those or whatever, but like that's probably about as close to a perfect like must play, like this is a platonic ideal of what I want a video game to be kind of stuff.
It's really, really up there.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of, you know, there's games that I like more because they hit my specific weak points, you know. Like if you put a gun to my head and was like, you know, do you like that or Darkest Dungeon better? It'd be difficult for me to say, but Darkest Dungeon is so much like trickier and less universal. You know, it's weirder and like, you know, it's a smaller fit. It's a more narrow cast.
Yeah.
Hitman, in terms of like a big budget thing, like the kind of worlds I want to experience and the kind of way I want systems to interact, like it is a pretty perfect intersection of those things. And every single time we bring it up, I'm like, I'm going to run the trilogy again. And that I don't have time for. So I thank people to stop bringing it up.
Stop it.
No, I'm kidding. But it is just like, man, that sounds good. I can run through every mission in Hitman. Sure. Let's go. Why not? Like, I love those levels. I want to be there. It's weird how good that game is.
Yeah.
And especially in like a conversational context, like it is useful as a comparison piece. And it speaks so well because there's so many games that do stuff wrong that Hitman does specifically right.
Yeah.
So like we find ourselves reaching for it constantly to be like, man, I wish this was more like Hitman. It's a real achievement.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just to be this yardstick of,
No, man. I don't want to hear anything more. I don't want to hear anything more about Hitman. Hey, Gary, what's the next question?
Greetings, gents. This is James says this. Also, Jonathan asks as well. Knowing your love of the Hitman series, have you played around with
James?
or planning on checking out the relatively new Freelancer mode? Really impressed how, despite moving on towards the 007 game, IOI graciously dropped a massive free update 2 years after Hitman 3's release that completely added a new element that, in my opinion, truly brings it into the forever game consideration. Outside of all of the challenge and tension, it has one small bonus, is that since the game randomizes map NPCs as targets, sometimes you'll wind up Wilton Creek and smile when you realize Old Helen West has been selected as one of the syndicate members. That, if you're in your words, has got to go. Although one time I did have to send Dale the mailman to the great bus stop in the sky with an exploding phone. Not one of my proudest assignments. I haven't gotten a chance to do this because I have this weird sense of wanting to run the series again.
Yeah.
You know, that's a sickness that I have. But I'm looking, it's in my pocket. You know, it's in this like, man, I got to play that. It's a source of anxiety and thrill for me. You know, it cuts multiple ways.
I feel very comfortable knowing that it is there waiting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've watched some playthroughs of it. It looks neat.
Yeah.
I like the way that it has continuity. I like the way that you choose who you're working for and encourages different kinds of play styles. And it's not just, silent assassin, zero spotting, perfect play styles. Like there's a syndicate that rewards you for going loud, which is something that, again, Hitman, just being this fucking incredible game, has always contained.
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty good actual third person shooter where it's always a bad idea if you're doing that.
Yeah.
But like it's fun and satisfying to do.
Yeah.
So
they gave you such good sandboxes to play in and such good toys to move around in the sandbox that like it is a very smart move to figure out a way to kind of like systemically recombine them, even more so than they already were, because they had the escalation missions and stuff. Like there was a ton of variety already built into the game, and giving this as kind of a, cherry on top of what was already there. Just what a generous company.
It reminds me a lot of what Edmund McMillan did with The Binding of Isaac before Repentance came out, where he was like, I'm done updating this, but hey, I've just released these workshop tools. Go nuts modding. Like the community has it now. Like you guys make it a forever game. They went back and did one last expansion that's fucking incredible. Yeah. But it's in the community's hands. Same thing with Darkest Dungeon 1.
Yeah.
They're making Darkest Dungeon 2, which is not very much like the first one. And they're just like, the modding tools are out there and people are making incredible mods. That can be your Darkest Dungeon 1.5.
Yeah.
We're going to move on. Like, I love the idea of giving something a forever home as you turn your attention away from it. This is a different approach, like turning it into a roguelike, but it reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Very good. Daniel writes, what kind of rules did you have around playing games as a kid? When I was young, I could play whenever, so long as I kept my grades up and did whatever I was supposed to do around the house. But my SO wasn't allowed to even touch them. And my best friend had very limited time, and he had to sneak out controllers when his parents weren't home. Gary famously does not plan to have children, but if either of you did have any, what would your household rules be?
I am known far and wide for my Baron ball sack.
You know what? That's your choice.
Yeah, the British
You've done
tabloids.
that grave for your balls.
I two little tiny graves, two little side by side tombstones holding hands. I like to think my balls would be friends. Like, I don't know. You don't want to have a real Felix and
I know.
You don't have an odd couple situation going on.
Yeah, you get a little Newton's cradle going on.
Yeah, one's real rowdy. You got a party ball and then you got a business ball, and like they don't get along.
I'm sad that they discontinued the party ball before I got to have one.
Yeah.
Do you remember the party ball?
I do remember the party ball.
Just a pressurized orb of beer.
It's like a grenade. It's a Half-Life weapon.
Pump, 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 throw.
Yeah. Your combine fucks. I did not have a rule, but if I got too stimulated early on before my parents decided to leave or leave me to my own devices, I would be stopped. So like I remember, I have a very distinct memory of being over at one of my mom's friend's house. They had a Nintendo and playing the NES game Trojan.
Okay.
And my mom being like, you have to stop. You're going to get Nintendo fever. Because I was like really excited playing Trojan.
Yeah.
But that's my only memory of any kind of rules. After that, I was basically a free range child and could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah. Really no rules, like not even like grade dependent. Kind of just going with, I was never really supervised, just kind of family just left me home alone way too young, or figured, oh, Chris is 10. He can watch Cole.
Yeah. The big one's watching the little one.
Yeah. Like that kind of stuff.
Like my balls.
Yeah. So there were never any rules, just occasionally, like, I don't know, I would just get in trouble because of a school thing, but they wouldn't implicate the games at all. Like they never took it away. They never really did anything other than just express their disappointment that I was lazy or lapsed on something, get real mad at me and guilt kind of stuff. The only real rule that I can think of is if there was company at all, I could not play games. I was forced to be out and just subjected to all of these
socializing with adults.
Yeah, so
like
socializing
the weird way that they forced you as a kid.
Yes, yeah. There was that, and shit, man. Part of one of the a lot of reasons I want to have a kid, but like I don't know, I don't want to have to think about those rules. I don't just whatever. It's complicated. It's really different than when I grew up.
Yeah, I don't know how it would work now.
No.
My best friend growing up, his parents wouldn't let him have a Nintendo. I had a Nintendo. He'd come over to my house and play it, but they would let him have a Game Boy. And it was such an arbitrary distinction. And I remember being a kid and not having the vocabulary, but wanting to explain to his parents, like, all you're doing is making it so he plays worse games. He's playing video games as much as I am, but he's sitting down and playing like, the Simpsons Go to Camp game. Like it's a real video game. And like, come on, like you're just punishing him for this hobby. This isn't actually reducing the amount of screen time.
You're consigning him to nothing but the worst Castlevanias and Mega Mans.
Yeah. Like it's just skewing his view of this stuff, and then he got into Pokemon and then that was it, because like that was on there and he spent more time on that or as much time on that as I did playing Super Nintendo and Nintendo. So they can be really arbitrary, but the thing that made me think of that reminded me of that is you saying that you wouldn't understand how to limit kids' game time now. I think that was his parents not getting it. Like to them, they made a choice like, oh, this is smaller, therefore it's less, or something. And those are the kind of mistakes we would make right now trying to limit our kids' screen time, I feel like.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, just out of lack of understanding,
Yeah. If I had kids, if I were going to do it, I think I would just say, limit your empty calorie entertainment time, but I don't care how you use it. Or I don't care what medium it is. Like I don't want you watching YouTuber Nazis or whatever, but like, you know what I mean? Like if a kid is like way into watching a TV show or playing a video game, I don't think that there's a huge qualitative difference between those two things.
Yeah. No.
I don't think one of them rots your brain more than another.
Yeah, that's probably. I mean, I think that the root of a lot of this is just understanding what the kid wants out of it and what they're getting out of it, and making sure that those line up. Yeah.
It's real weird that like growing up, adults when I was a kid thought that video games were worse for me than TV. And then when I looked at when the Gary Butterfield Memorial Library YouTube series, which I'll do more of at some point, I found an old book called The Plug-in Drug at a thrift store that's about the dangers of television.
Oh yeah.
And how that was the thing in the 80s. But by the time I was growing up in the 90s, that TV was virtuous. Like just park here and just stare. This is great. But if you're holding a controller, it's fucked up. And it's a real arbitrary distinction.
You're nothing but a little zombie. You get the gamer eyes. You get that.
You got Nintendo
blank stare.
Whereas like, oh, I can just sit here and literally watch TV until my eyeballs fucking fall out. Like, and very similar to my friend with the Game Boy, it just meant I was doing worse stuff. It was like watching like fucking Coach.
Yeah.
Because it was on and like I would have been more enriched and better served playing through the Mega Man games again.
Yeah.
And just my parents didn't have the vocabulary understanding to get that.
It's funny because everybody grew up having a thing they liked to do demonized, and then they turn around and don't see the same pattern happening. So you go from comic books to pinball, or before that pool, with the Music Man.
River City. Yeah. Right here in River City.
Trouble in River City, yeah. Dungeons and Dragons, video games, the MTV, so MySpace.
It's why like I try my best to like absolutely pump the brakes whenever I feel like a moral component when I get cranky about something like a TikTok.
Right.
Like I find that that format doesn't work for me. But I don't think it's, and there are arguments around that in terms of data security and stuff.
Yeah.
Within the context of the question, I always try to kind of pump the brakes if I'm like, kids in these TikToks. And it's like, well, this is like, what is stopping this from just being Super Nintendo?
Right.
And being scared of nothing. Like, yeah. So in general, I think a lot of those household rules are bullshit. Let
your kids run wild. They know what they need.
Yeah. Well, being a big what is it? A big pile where the wild things are.
Oh,
Mr. Mundus says, in honor of the discussion of Ravenholm from the last dispatch, what are your thoughts on horror levels and segments in non-horror games? Any particularly good, cough, cough, Shellbridge Cradle, cough, or bad ones?
Shellbridge Cradle is a really good example on that.
It's like the example.
Yeah, it's such a good one that it's hard for me to think of another that
I got one, Ravenholm. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, no.
Yeah. It's weird when a game like will just have a scary level,
yes.
In the middle. It doesn't happen as often as you might think for this to be. I don't have a deep well of these. It's not that there are none, but I don't have a deep well because it doesn't happen that often. I don't think.
Yeah.
The Oceanside Motel.
Yeah.
Lines is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a horror themed game up until that point, but
all three examples are ones that I did on Hexcrank when I wanted to do like a little series on horror levels and non-horror games.
What's a weird kind of example of that the Innsmouth Escape from Dark Corners of the Earth, because that's a horror game throughout, but it gets less of a horror game as it goes.
Yeah.
Like the back half, it's barely,
I mean, just like it gets into like it's a different kind of horror. It's a standout level. I would say the same thing about the Funhouse in Witcher, or not Witcher 3. Sorry, the Funhouse in Silent Hill 3. Sorry, I'm looking at an article of the scariest horror levels in non-horror games, and there are some good examples here. But yeah, like that, like the Funhouse in Silent Hill 3 is a different kind of horror that is one of the most effective and memorable sections of that.
Yeah.
Do you want me to hit me with some of these that are here?
Yeah. Lay some Google on me.
Yeah, like the white phosphorus from Spec Ops: The Line.
I'm sure. Like it's a different
more
kind
of a sequence.
Horror,
Yeah.
Well, and also like a very different kind of
Yeah.
like, ooh, war crimes.
Yeah.
You did them.
The plant vault from Fallout New Vegas they have here.
Again, kinda,
yeah.
Yeah, like it's not that scary.
The Von Everett estate from Hearts of Stone, Witcher 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. If you're there, this is a good one. Batman Arkham Asylum, the morgue, or I would break that out to any of the Scarecrow stuff. Yeah, in the
except for
games.
the boss fight.
Yes,
which is not scary. It's like fighting the Colossus of Rhodes and God of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just a couple of examples there, but like nothing as good or stand out or like, a platonic ideal as, Shellbridge. Right.
Yeah. And Ravenholm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're at about 40 minutes here. Do you want to go on to other kinds of questions?
Yeah, let's do other kinds of questions. Again, as a reminder, this is Oops All Questions.
Yes.
So if you're waiting for the topic, tough shit.
Mm-hmm.
What's Gotham say? Oh, and very nice to meet you, Gotham.
Yes.
We met you at the Midwest Gaming Classic.
Yeah, there are a handful of people that we met at the Midwest Gaming Classic who have wrote in here, but it was very nice meeting all you.
Gotham and Kathleen. Very nice to meet you.
So life question here from Gotham. Cole, I think I speak for the entire world when I say we need more Wales Shamrock content. What did the continued adventures of those rapscallions look like? Are they getting the band back together for one last score, or just trying to stay one step ahead of their Moriarty-esque nemesis William Hughes? It's 2023 and prime time to flesh out the Duckfeed extended cinematic universe. P.S. Kathleen and I loved meeting you all at the Midwest Gaming Classic. You're always welcome in the Badger State. I would like to come back, but you need to deal with your Kia Boys problems.
Yeah, you got an infestation. It's worth noting that Will Hughes is not the Moriarty enemy of the Shamrock Club, because he had a group, or Will's Shamrock, because he had a group called the Losers Club, based on it, of course, where they would drive around like listening to like sad boy friend zone songs.
Yay!
He's talked about that, like Vertical Horizon and shit. They had like mixes of that. So
they have an opinion on who's a god and who is not.
Yes, so he's not quite the Moriarty. He's more of like, it's more like Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. Like, Pokemon Losers Club and Pokemon Whale Shamrock.
For anybody who's completely lost, this is a detail that was very tactically deployed after years of knowing Gary and these people. It was on the adaptation that came out, Sonic 2. When I was in high school, there was just a good friend group name, Whale Shamrock, named after a fictional bar that just happened to be wherever we congregated.
It was a nautical Irish bar.
I mean, I don't know how nautical it was, but it was Irish. Yes.
Well, who's the whale?
I don't know. Depends.
You don't know how nautical it is. Fuck you. Somebody owns the Shamrock. It's the second half of the name of it. I think that the thing that you and Will have in common that is so dorky to myself and the rest of Gen Pop is that you named your friend group.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I
imagine that's kind of common, but it's also like inescapably dorky.
Yeah. Oh, also, I didn't name it. I didn't contest it. I liked hanging out with these people, and that's what it was. Yeah. I'm not going to distance myself.
Hey, folks, I'd like to talk about the name a little bit. What are we going for with this? What do we want people to think about when they hear the Whale Shamrock is coming?
Yeah.
You know? Because right now, abject confusion. Is it a leprechaun? Like what is the Whale Shamrock? What do these two things have to do with each other?
It's kind of like if you want to get the drop on somebody, if you really want to get a few good hits in, you got to attack them naked.
Oh yeah,
you got Eastern Promises it. Yeah. So the tricky part about getting more of this content is I'm still in contact with these guys, and they are more adults than me. So like
you just gotta show up at their door like we're getting the band back together. You have to World's End them, dude. Like you have to be the change in terms of getting updates.
Yeah.
Like you show up in the Whale Shamrock uniform at their door and then just be like, leave your kids. We're heading to Applebee's or whatever.
Yeah. But like it's a lot of kids. There's some divorces in the mix. There's some lots of volunteer work. Yeah.
It's the end credits have already happened where it showed the updates of where are they now.
Yeah.
Like the end of Stand By Me. Except instead of finding a corpse, you found a fucking bread basket at Denny's.
Hey, we only went to Denny's if Fridays was closed. Come on.
Okay. Fridays. Oh, sorry. That is so incredible. But yeah, I got to find out more about the losers as well.
Yeah.
I also, to be clear, I did have a crew. We just didn't have a name.
Yeah.
So there was a crew. Like I'm not making fun of having friends.
Yeah. If that was your angle, that would be so fucking funny.
Very funny. Oh, la-di-da.
Yeah.
You weren't home alone.
But also there there aren't really stories that would be interesting. It's like a lot of camping trips, like go into a lake and car camping and getting way too drunk at like age 19, sure. Like getting too drunk that getting so drunk we probably shouldn't have been swimming, but we definitely were.
Singing Irish sea songs.
Yeah.
Like, shanties. Moving on. Jordan or Maya says, hi, Gary and Cole. Also, really nice to see Jordan. Seeing them. Being an enthusiast about language, including speaking one fluently, English, I sometimes get certain phrases or deliveries stuck in my head. The perennial example of this for me is thinking the phrase, it's toilet time for Tiny Town, almost hourly since the Genesis Tub Treehouse of Horror segment. Do either of y'all get certain phrases stuck in your head that you cannot purge despite your best efforts? And then bonus question, are there any songs which you have misheard the lyrics to and cannot simply hear the true lyrics when you listen? Will Hughes would be happy to point out that this is called a mondegreen, and I'm sure he would happily entail why it's called that as well. At least I assume so. Will is a trivia parasite.
It's called that because of a commonly misheard lyric in a folk song. The lyric is laid him on the green. People would hear it as Lady Mondegreen, and so it's called Mondegreen.
I get why you did that joke, but it did step on Jordan calling Will a trivia parasite.
Well, I didn't want Will to be the only trivia parasite here.
I know. You guys, the losers in Whale Shamrock have finally come together. It's a Sharks versus Jets situation. We've got a West Side Story going. Yeah. Brought together by trivia. The two warring groups of sexless men have decided to form an uneasy truce.
Oh my god!
I actually very specifically got "It's Toilet Time for Tiny Town" stuck in my head for a long time. I wanted to make an album called that.
Oh yeah,
I like the. It's very poetic. It's toilet time for Tiny Town.
Yeah, there's a real consonance to that.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. I've got one. It's from a King of the Hill episode where Buck Strickland's is getting a divorce. So he's trying to offload all of his stuff so Ms. Liz won't get it,
Yes.
And he's just like handing out his personal possessions and he hands something to Hank and he just says, "Now you need to make sure that Joe Jack gets this here scimitar." This scimitar. This here scimitar.
That's great. Also a good name for an album.
Make sure Joe Jack gets this here scimitar.
That's really good. I like get the new one of these every week.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to, and a lot of them are from games and TV shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like Simpson stuff.
Yeah,
can't build a robot, be a robot.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know that I have a misheard lyric kind of thing. I've always been a lyric reader ever since I was young, so I don't know.
My favorite one of Miss Lyric is from What's Love Got to Do with It, where Tina Turner says, "What's love but a second-hand emotion?"
Mm-hmm.
And I always heard it as, "What's love but a second hand in motion?" Like on the clock. Which I think is kind of a really poetic line that I always heard it as. What is a love but a second hand in motion? Like it's already running out. It changes the meaning of the song a lot, but that's my big misheard.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't have a good answer. Did you have another one besides Toilet Time for Tiny Town?
No, not that off the top of my head. Yeah.
Let's hear. Tom says, "I'm a British dude, and I've just booked flights to Portland and the Oregon coast with my girlfriend and her kids to see where she grew up and meet her parents this summer. Can Gary recommend any good spots, either family-friendly or adult-orientated, if the kids stop with their grandparents for a night? Do either of you have any advice, comedic or serious, for a Brit visiting the U.S. over the 4th of July?"
Oh, no, welcome to Oregon.
Yeah.
If you are going to, so the Oregon coast, I'm not sure where you're going on the coast, but I love the Oregon coast.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to be there for 4th of July, it's a fun place to see fireworks, cause you see them reflected in the water. And they really do it up. I don't think you have to worry about, there's not much, at least in my experience, much that happens culturally around here with 4th of July, other than the fireworks display. So it's not like people are walking around dressed as flags with shotguns and stuff all day long. So you'll be fine. You'll see some fireworks and eat some like carnival food if you'd like. And then in terms of good spots, there's lots of stuff around here. Portland has a great arcade scene. Hillsborough, which is a suburb, has my favorite arcade and one that was recently voted like by some organization, the world's best pinball arcade, which is Next Level Games, which is absolutely incredible. Must go to destination if you like arcade games. Very kid friendly. No drinking happening there. Just this last weekend, I took my friends that have kids, since I'm really angling for fun uncle, took them to the underground blacklight 3D pirate themed mini golf place.
Oh, dang.
That I've been to before, which I hadn't been to in a long time. And it is a good fun time with kids. There is a limit of 4 people, but if you just like bring some kids with you, they don't stop you and there's no reason for them to stop you. The guy was really funny. He's like, "I'll make an exception this time." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, well next time we're bringing 8 people." And then after that 10, we'll see whether your exception lasts.
You gave this mouse a cookie.
Yeah. How often do you think we do this? You gave us an inch, we're going to take your fucking life. It's very funny. He was being very magnanimous about it. But yeah, that's real fun. Great comedy clubs. Portland Helium has consistently like very good, funny shows. Mini golf. Our zoo's great. And I said that before. It's a really, really good zoo. Reasonable art museum. It's not as good as the ones that I grew up near in Chicago, but it's still good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as just being in America on the 4th of July in general, like, I don't know, just be receptive. People are going to be like, if my experience, like being around Americans who are around foreigners on 4th of July, they're going to be very effusive with their hospitality to a degree that is probably going to be uncomfortable. But yeah, it's, it just kind of go along with it, and it's not a, it just, yeah, it's a holiday where you hang out in the backyard, sweat a lot, and eat a lot of very heavy food.
Yeah. pretty easy, pretty chill.
Yeah. Not a lot of effort required.
Yeah. Should we move on to media questions? Do a couple media, a couple show, and then do lightning round?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Is this you or me with Malachi?
This is going to be you.
Malachi asks media questions. I recently watched Skinamarink. Although I enjoyed the movie and it did a very good job of making me feel a certain vibe while watching, the extreme artsy camera angles of hallway ceilings quickly outran their welcome. Is there any media that you have consumed that attempted something for the sake of art that annoyed you so much that it took you out of the media? Additional small question. Have you seen this movie? What did you think? As someone with a young son myself, the safety knife scene made my heart hurt, and I immediately did a childproof check around my whole house. I have not seen it. It's on, we have a little whiteboard next to the TV of movies we want to watch. It's on there, but we haven't watched it yet. Have you seen it yet?
Nope. I also want to watch it. It hit that, it hit the Twitter hype cycle around the time that it came out. People were saying, making lots of big promises. Basically, I want to forget those promises before I go into it.
Yeah.
Because, just see any number of discussions where, Twitter gets a favorite new toy, and then they get over enthusiastic and tear it apart. So,
yep. Yeah. And just like everything is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get annoyed at artsy camera tricks all the time. I don't, I think that it's the kind of thing that needs to be deployed, really sparingly to work. The most recent example I can think of, I know you and I are in different pages on this, and that's okay. Not trying to convince you or anything, but it really stood out for me when we rewatched Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh yeah.
Front filmable, like just too much clever camera work for me. Like, oh, their shadows are walking. They're not walking. Like, I just want that stuff to be deployed with laser precision.
Yeah.
If it feels like in a specific moment, it's to a point, like for example, in Midsummer when they arrive at the camp and that's when they do their upside down shot.
Yeah.
They're entering into this other reality. Like they're entering this other world. It's to a point there. If it's used willy nilly, I just lose its power really quick. Yeah. So, for me,
I mean, there's an example of this like next month, but I think Norco is a little bit too liberal with its purple prose.
It's way too liberal with its purple prose.
I'm a big fan of some apocalyptic poetry, but like it needs to be coming out of Harry Dubois' mouth if you're an apocalypse cop kind of thing, or out of Inland Empire, it can't be everybody who
it's exactly that. Like it doesn't contrast. That's getting ahead of ourselves with Norco, but the problem with Norco I found with that is that the omniscient narrator had that voice, but then many characters did as well.
Yeah.
A couple of characters like decidedly didn't, and those are my favorite characters in the game.
Oh yeah.
Like Lucky's real fun. Like I love Lucky. Lucky's great. And it's because he doesn't talk like the spires provide fire that reflects off the eyes of the night, and the parish sleeps fitfully for one last month, and like just everything being that.
Yeah. But yeah, just like that'll stick out to me. Like I can like any of that in like isolation, as an evocative phrase or whatever. But if it is the primary voice, then I get a little perturbed. Yeah,
too much.
Let's see here. So Andy K 250 asks, so posits a scenario. The world has finally rejected Myers-Briggs scores as a shorthand way of describing someone's core beliefs. The system that has replaced the MBTI inexplicably uses first and second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons campaign settings as the vectors for describing someone's personality.
Makes sense so far.
So, Gary, if Cole were a first or second edition campaign setting, or a combination of several, which would he be? Cole, same question about Gary if you feel confident answering. And then Andy has provided a very helpful list. We're not going to read all of them because, it's a lot, but
we
I'm happy to have this.
Yeah. No, this is useful. There's also ones I can't remember. Like I don't remember what Lankmar's deal is.
Same.
The gut answer for this would be Ravenloft because you like horror stuff, like Ravenloft, Forgotten Realms hybrid.
Yeah.
But the horror of Ravenloft is very Universal Monsters.
Yes.
Like gothic horror, which is not something I necessarily associate with you. So I might give you Planescape Forgotten Realms if I were giving you two.
Yeah.
But the horror side of Planescape.
Right. The
so
existential
like the
stuff.
Trippy,
Yeah. For you, Gary,
Karator Spelljammer. I'm a steampunk monster. I'm Eberron von Steampunk, and I'm intolerable.
So I was gonna throw a little bit of Spelljammer in there, actually.
Okay.
Just because of the goofiness and love for beholders and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a certain, I would say, like non-conventional kind of side to a lot of the stuff you're into, but it's just a very light touch, of like a little bit of Spelljammer. I would kind of split the difference between like a Dark Sun and a Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, I can see that. I love Dark Sun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. I would love to have this replace Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, I would love to have anything replace Myers-Briggs.
So easy. Yeah. Like, dating like very easy for me. Like, I'm an INTJ unicorn. That doesn't make any sense to me. But you're a Forgotten Realms Mystara. That's a trad wife right there. You're Greyhawk Dragonlance.
Little meat and potatoes, but that's fine. Yeah.
Stay at home.
Salt of the earth.
Stay at home, mom. Yeah. You're I'm trying to figure out which one would be a Nazi. I think it'd be like Birthright. Probably Birthright Greyhawk.
Okay. Yeah. Greyhawk is because of the Norse stuff, or the
and Birthright for like the Manifest Destiny shit.
I've never played Birthright. I don't know what that is.
It's about running like lineages, like royal families and stuff, running kingdoms. It's like
a royalist kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of
gotcha.
Thing. Yeah.
I need to see what Lankmar is. I've got no idea.
I think now that I'm thinking about it, Lankmar might be the Farfid and the Grey Mouser.
Farfid and the Grey Mouser. But I don't know what that aesthetic is.
Like low fantasy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, like not that different than several of the other ones. It's just based on a licensed thing.
Yeah.
Moving on to just a couple show questions so we get them all here. Bo says, Gary, have you ever considered Everything to Morpheus, a podcast in reaction to one page of Little Nemo in Slumberland per episode? Lots of thoughts in there about what the Constitution means to wings. I haven't. I love Little Nemo in Slumberland pages of that, even though I think it's a really hard comic to read because every page has narration that describes what characters said in dialogue. And it would be very hard for me to get over that.
Yeah. No. Question answered, I think.
Yeah. No, that's the answer.
Chapel writes, in an episode a few years ago, you guys mentioned your break glass in case of emergency games. At the times, the ones that you cited were Chrono Trigger and Ocarina of Time. Plus, I think one other I can't remember. Since you've covered two of the three, since then, what has taken their slots? Do you have any games that you feel are big, inevitable episodes looming in the distance?
Someday we'll do Mario 64. That's a real big one. I feel like there are ones. There are so many games. Like when we sat down and looked at like all the games that we've done, and then looked at Abject Suffering, as well. Like it's just like thousands.
Yeah,
it's like more than 1,000. It's between Abject Suffering and this, it's more than like 1,000 at this point, which is pretty nuts, or like roughly around that. Like, and I don't feel like we're running out.
No,
You
no.
know?
Like, yeah, they're like big tent poles, but every year there gets to be more of those,
Yeah.
kind of like laid behind us too, So I don't know. We're not really running out of track for it. There's Majora's Mask, which I know we eventually want to get around to.
Fable.
Mhm.
There's, it's like big Far Cry 2.
Yeah.
There's some big PC ones
Mhm.
in there. And then there's like Civilization.
Yeah, any
Never
number
done a
of
Civ.
those. Yeah.
Like there's a whole section of that.
Mhm.
Figuring out a way to cover Minecraft,
Yeah.
figuring out a way to cover WoW. Like there are big ones up there. We have done a lot of the big
Mhm.
hits
And
there, but you can only mine the past for so long.
yeah,
You know.
I think we talked a lot more about break glass in case of emergency games way back when the show was bi-weekly.
Yes.
Or semi-weekly or whichever one's appropriate, every other week, just when WoF slots felt a little bit more rare and we only had a certain amount of time to dedicate to it. And also, back when we were still retro focused, I think that was more of a thing. Now I've got no compunction about pulling out a big boy. Usually, sometimes we will like look at the big comic book numbers as an opportunity to pull those out. But like, I don't know. I just I don't feel the need to hold an awful lot back with it.
No. Yeah, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
And especially now that we've it's no longer retro, so new big games that come out exist for that. Also, we've not pivoted, but we've been doing a lot more indie stuff lately. Just because indie games rock. They're good. And it's where a lot of interesting shit's happening here. And there are a bunch of big indie games we haven't done as well.
Yeah.
Like if we start thinking of like the stars of that.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting
Logic too. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even old like stuff like Braid, which I'm not as big a fan as other people, but things like Braid or like that early wave of indie stuff would be interesting. Like World of Goo.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time has anyone ever talked about World of Goo seriously?
I don't know.
Like it'd be fun to talk about World of Goo seriously.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good game.
Yeah.
Shall we lightning round?
Yes, we shall lightning round.
I'm going to propose for next dispatch as well. Let's do them backwards. Let's do game questions last.
Yes. Yeah.
So we don't get through proportionally more of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But let's go lightning round.
Yeah. I'll start here. Randall asks, favorite kind of donut?
Apple fritter for me.
Apple fritter is real hard to fuck with. I like a sour cream donut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Nice and crispy on the outside, like glaze, but still very moist on the inside. Kind of perfect density. Yeah. Love it.
My runner up is a cruller or a crawler. I love a crawler.
Crawler's good.
Yeah. Andy asks, question mainly for Gary. Have you gotten around to watching the Willow TV series yet? If so, what are your thoughts? The answer is no. See above, having a giving a shit tax. And I know that seems like not a TV show that you'd have to give a shit about, but I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and also kind of surprisingly, like Liv was into watching it, but she was not as psyched as I thought she would be. So we've been, she wanted to watch the X-Files and I wanted to watch that as well. So that's kind of what we're working our way through.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Doug asks, so you are given unlimited funds and copyright access to adapt any IP to a game. What IP do you adapt and what kind of game is it?
There's nothing in this question. It doesn't say that hasn't been adapted.
You're right.
Before. So it's the safe answer would be my X-Men Tactics or my immersive sim, like X-Men game. Like you're plopped in the middle, you create a mutant and then you're plopped in the middle of a Oblivion sized immersive sim thing. Like if you're Nightcrawler, you can leap around in second floor windows and shit like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of my safe answer.
I would probably say like Dark Tower as a kind of like a I don't know, somewhere between like a Disco Elysium and like a Baldur's Gate, turn-based kind of RPG kind of deal. Yeah,
kind of surprised there isn't a turn-based like CRPG of Dark Tower. It feels like that would have come about in the 90s.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
it hasn't.
Tyler says, I took a nap last night and when I woke up, my apartment door was open. Were you trying to ask to 911 dispatch? That's a different dispatch. Nothing was missing, and my cat was with me, but boy, am I freaked out because I live alone. Y'all ever woken up by some weird shit before? Nothing like that, but you should look up frogging. With a PH, you might have gotten frogged.
Yeah, go and check your closets. See if there's evidence that somebody's been frogging.
That is scary shit. Like it's obviously it's possible that your door just didn't latch.
Yeah,
and like a breeze opened it up, but that is scary. That's never happened to me. Just like
no, I don't care for that at all.
Yeah, heebie-jeebies.
Yeah,
just like
that example kind of blew out my palate for this. It's hard to think of anything.
That matches that. Like I'll hear a weird noise or something.
Yeah,
but it's just house settling.
Oh, you know what? I know something. My grandma used to be in the habit of putting like a mint on my pillow.
Okay,
because she lived in our house for like a good portion of the year.
You work at a hotel?
No, it was just like a nice thing that she liked to do. I think she learned it from hotels. And who doesn't want to like grab an Andes mint when they come home for the day?
That's true. Yeah.
But I neglected to realize it was there one time, and I woke up in the middle of the night, just with my side of the bed smeared with brown stuff, because it like kind of like fell down onto the sheets and melted. And I, for all the world, thought that I shit myself. But in reality, I just slept on a chocolate.
Without knowing at all.
Yes.
Like if you can sleep through that's the scary part.
Yeah.
It's like, what else could you have done?
Oh, yeah. No, it's just could have killed a man.
Yeah. Could have killed or been killed. Yeah.
Oh, KL writes, what was the last thing to make you feel the emotion best expressed by sickos.jpg?
This is gonna make me sound like a idiot because nothing will come of it. But I was pretty happy when Trump got arrested.
Yep,
that was a real like yes. Even though I wasn't naive enough to think like, oh, we got him.
Yeah,
but I was feeling like this probably made him a little sad.
Yeah.
He probably didn't like this. That's good. He's probably had a bad day.
He'll probably get stress out enough. This might cause some kind of episode. That's
exactly
fine.
Like it might make his heart explode or something. No. Like that was gave me a real like yes.
Yeah. Seeing people's reaction to it was real fun too. Just all of the Chicken Little stuff. Yeah. But like that, I don't know, that happens for me a lot.
Yeah.
Like just because I follow that stuff pretty closely. But yeah, no, I definitely got that feeling about that.
That was a good feeling.
I'll get that one just because I also follow that 6-second game trailers Twitter, which is mostly like anime titty Picross games. It's like 90%
almost exclusively.
90% of that by volume. But sometimes something will come across and like I'll see in the video like somebody moving supply shelves around, like from a management point of view. And it's like, oh yeah. I saw one in particular was like it was a city builder that was like set in feudal China. And I was like, oh fuck, a feudal China city builder, stacker. Give it to me. Yeah.
Like
I was like, oh god, yeah, give it to me.
I had a little bit when I was playing through the Resident Evil 4 remake, and in my head was having an argument with a tulpa that was saying that it obviated the first one. Like somebody having the argument like, oh, what is even the point of playing Resident Evil 4 now that there's a remake?
No.
And in my head, I was like, okay, motherfucker, you just brought a fork to a fucking gunfight and just started laying out things in my head. Absolutely mentally dominated this version of me that I created. It was very funny.
Yeah. And you know what? When I saw what the regenerators looked like in the RE4 remake, I also did a little just because of the Grinch bod. I was like, oh fuck, they give him Grinch bod. That's amazing.
I was nonstop being like, yes, but it was a different. It wasn't so much a sicko. It was like, this is meant to be good, and it's also really good.
Yes, yeah.
Benjamin says, The Last of Us showed us that video games can be made into mainstream media adaptations and be beloved by non-gamers and gamers alike. What game do you think would you like to have get the HBO treatment? I'm going to throw something out there, and this isn't something that's been a long thing. I would like to see, and this almost feels like it could be made if it were a more popular property. Tyranny.
Oh yeah.
Like hit that Game of Thrones, recapture some of that lightning.
Game of Thrones superhero shit. Yeah.
Yeah, Game of Thrones, but with powers. And explicitly like somebody coming in and taking over, for two extremes of like an absolute shithead.
Yeah.
Like an anti-hero kind of series. Like we're real into our watching people be real shitty on TV.
Yes.
Phase right now. I think that you could get some delicious evil going on with tyranny.
Yeah, getting some delicious would be real good.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have an example for this because a lot of this, like a lot of the very low hanging fruit examples are like already being done. Like there's already a Fallout series being made.
Yeah.
There's already there's Disco Elysium being made by Amazon, which is fucking just wild.
Witcher already came out.
Yeah. So like low hanging fruit stuff that I think would like very naturally lend itself, Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer for this. Sorry.
Yeah. It's tricky.
Quinn writes, do you think you will cover Wo Long?
I'm not interested in it, Gary. Like I don't want to unilaterally decide.
Yeah.
I've followed it a lot and I've watched a lot of people have discussions around it. And the idea of like a Neo 3 that is harder than Sekiro in a lot of ways, but doesn't have as good level design could not be less interesting to me. Like I'm still not over my, not wanting to play a mediocre Souls-like with not interesting levels thing. And even if we do go back to doing like 3D Souls-likes, which I'm sure we will, I think that there are other ones I want to cover beforehand.
Yeah.
Personally. And I don't like the Three Kingdoms. Right. I don't like Olubu. I'm done with it. It's weird that there's just like infinite games set about that story. And it's like, it's not, I understand that I'm not trying to be, Americentric. Like I understand it's very important. It would feel like to me, like if there were like tons and tons of games set in the Revolutionary War or something like it really feels like that crew of people, those outsized personalities have been mined. To me, at least.
It's kind of like Journey to the West, Like,
yes.
I've just, I'm full up. No demand.
Yeah, I've just seen the story enough times. Like it's not, and again, like I'm not trying to sound Amero or Eurocentric. Like, if we had the same saturation for Knights of the Round Table, Arthurian legend, we have pastiches that take place in medieval times, kind of things.
Yeah.
But it's not the same characters. Like, what if like there were many, many series of games that all had Gawain and Lancelot as just characters, and they would show up, and you were supposed to be like, "Oh shit, it's Lancelot. I know this and this and this about Lancelot." I don't think there's anything that quite does that as much as Three Kingdoms does that I can think of in media. And it just feels like, what more is there to say or do? If you're just real into that period, like I could see just wanting more and more of it, but I don't have that interest.
Yeah.
I
fired it up and I thought it felt weird in my hands. So I put it down. That is the luxury that Game Pass affords us.
Yes.
So, and that's precisely what Game Pass exists for. So never is a strong word. But probably not near the top of the list for me.
I'm not a Team Ninja guy.
Yeah.
I didn't like Neo very much. I just don't like them very much.
Yeah.
So,
I thought of an answer for the previous question. The adaptation one. And this is so obvious. Yakuza.
Oh yeah. I can see that doing really well. Like almost like a Boardwalk Empire kind of thing. Like a long running crime.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah. The trick would be incorporating the side stuff.
The goofy stuff.
So like the tone would be a little tricky. Like there aren't a lot of TV shows I think that match that tone.
the wild oscillations that that series does. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good answer for sure. Jeffrey says, I picked up certain bits of useful and evocative terminology while listening to the network, such as business claw and pleasure claw, that dichotomy, and the sliding scale of human bisection from easy way to hard way. Do you have a favorite Duckfeedism of which you are particularly proud?
I do like the codifying the different ways to cut somebody in half.
Yeah, it's across the street, not down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so into it that I don't even know that I can come up with an example of something, because so much of it also is pulled from other places. I don't know if, like, from the inside, if I can say this.
The one that I feel pride in, because I used it in short stories before I started describing games this way, but I think it's a really useful descriptor, is sitting in a bathtub while it drains. That was like something that I did in creative writing classes, would say that, but I think it's a really useful descriptor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a feeling, and it's a feeling that pops up in games a lot.
It does. So the sinking disappointment. Oh no, disappointment. This is not going to get better.
I think Russian roulette with a Gatling gun is also a really evocative and useful phrase. Like, you have a random chance of this thing happening, but it happens so infrequently that the excitement is drained from it.
Sorry to disappoint you with no answer on that.
Didn't disappoint me. Didn't disappoint Jeffrey. Jeffrey's fine.
Nick says, you've touched the magic, and then there's nothing there. You've touched the magic blank, and it has drained you evolve your musical skill at any instrument you've ever played. In exchange, you are now a master at an instrument you have never tried before. What would you pick?
Ooh, I would like to be able to play the violin really well.
Yeah.
Like, just stand in a room and mournfully play a violin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that just seems very nice.
It's a very versatile instrument too. You know, like, you can play a lot of different
fiddle
genres.
At a moment's notice.
Yeah. And I have touched a violin. I have attempted to produce a tone from a violin, so I don't know if that if that takes it away. If it does, then I would say a cello.
Yeah. The thing with a cello is, like, getting it out.
Yeah,
like, it sounds great though. Like, it's a great tune.
Yeah,
sound.
Yeah. And I like those instruments that are like the kind of like the middle ground between treble clef and bass clef, kind of deal.
Sure.
Like, just like a tenor sax, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Saxophone is the funniest instrument to play.
But I played that in school, so I lose that. I lose that ability. Yeah.
No, I just mean it's a very funny thing to switch to that, because, like, just immediately you're just alone in a room playing saxophone has such a different tone than playing a violin alone in a room.
Just naked.
Yeah. It's like Charlie on the mountain. Like he says, if you could be sent back in time to your childhood self, what game would it be? Or if you can send a game back to your childhood self, that's my fault. If you can send a game back to your childhood self, what game would it be? That's a great question, because, like, the tastes have changed so much. Like, my childhood self didn't like the same things.
Yeah.
So it would have to be something that, like, was adjacent to things I liked. So, like, maybe like Shovel Knight or something.
Yeah.
Young me could have gotten like, whoa, holy shit, from that.
I counter for this in my answer here. Like, if I could send the Final Fantasy VII remake back to my 10-year-old self and be like, "Oh, you think this is cool? Bam. Yeah, just like, here's this, but more." Kind of deal.
It so relies on the Final Fantasy. Like, you had to have played Final Fantasy VII. Like, it's in conversation with the history of the
I had played it by the time I was 10. So
do you think it would have the same impact if there wasn't 30 years of nostalgia between now and then? I don't know, feel like that it feels reliant on, like, a myth that got made up around that game to me.
Yeah.
To work.
So
graphically, yeah. Like, you'd be like, that you think Ifrit looks cool, here's Ifrit, and you'd, like, lose your mind.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about what would have impressed me when I was 10. I wasn't necessarily looking, I appreciated Final Fantasy VII on its own at that point. Not even just for, like, the mythos that it built up and the way that it kind of appreciated over time there. So like, I knew that my 10-year-old self would be like, holy shit, this is what games will be, kind of deal. Even if I've got problems with that as a product. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not even saying it as a criticism. It just my understanding was that was a big part of the meta appeal.
Yes.
Was it being in reference to that stuff?
I mean, if I would send a Steam Deck back.
Oh man,
instead of a
can you
game.
imagine?
Yeah.
Ruin the timeline. Or you could send back Vampire Survivors and be like, hey, just invent this and make $1 billion.
Oh yeah.
Like you're not going to like this very much, young Gary, but you never have to work again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Here you are.
What
does Andrew say?
Andrew says, top 3 favorite national or ethnic cuisines. Go.
There have been updates on this recently. The top spot, for me has always been kind of contested in terms of like ethnic cuisines. Previous tie, taking the top spot. Now though, Korean. Fully Korean pilled.
Yeah.
For ethnic foods. Like I love Thai food. We went to a really great Korean place. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about bulgogi. I was thinking about bimbimbap's. Korean. Love Korean food.
Yeah. This gets into like tricky stuff because you're talking about like authenticity,
Yeah.
So like if I said Indian food, like basically if I have a choice, I will go for that. But understand that I mean the very specific kind of, British Indian food, what we get here in America, right?
Yeah.
That would be pretty near the top. There would also be like Vietnamese or let's say Vietnamese because I will always fuck with a pho,
I wish I liked pho more.
Yeah,
not a big pho guy. There's never a situation for me, and they're not trying to convince you or anything or anyone, but I was thinking about it. You put a gun to my head 100 times. There's no situation which I'd rather have pho than ramen, like fancy ramen.
So I was also going to say Japanese specifically for ramen. I'll fuck with both. Yeah. I like those. Yeah.
A brothy soup.
Yeah.
I might go, if I were going to top 3 them, I might go Korean, soul food, like Southern barbecue, and then sushi might be my top 3. Sushi burns real clean. Like I always feel good after eating it.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, obviously you've got, American, Italian and, American Mexican in the mix as well, but that just feels so fully, it's not remarkable in the way that some of those others are. I can get those here where I live right now in Nowhere, Ohio.
American Italian's not on there for me. I don't like American Italian restaurant doesn't do a whole lot for Gary, but food is one of the more is like everything's subjective. And then food is like crazy fucking like subjective.
Ultra subjective. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the only thing more subjective than say like music. Like you can just listen and be like, this sounds like fucking shit. And someone's like, no, this actually is awesome. And there's no discerning it. Like there's no articulating it. It's the same thing with food. Like every time, Liv gets something, I'm like, oh, are there cucumbers in it? Cause I hate the taste of cucumbers. And she's like, that's so weird. I'm like, yeah, there's no explanation. It's just, they just taste really bad to me.
Yeah.
Can't explain it. Bad taste. Moni says, hi guys. As somebody who likes watching fighting game special move compilations when I'm drunk, I have one simple question. 1,000 slashes or one huge punch?
This is such a good question.
That is a good question. I love a big heavy attack in a thing.
Wow. So I'm the other way. I like the 1,000 slashes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Takes all kinds. There's a shonen, like a gross shonen platonic anti-ideal of it, I can imagine for both of them.
Yeah.
But if I'm just thinking about like I'm thinking about the big slam punch at the end of a Smash Brothers combo.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Big impact.
Yeah. Or, I'm thinking of, like Meta Knight's attacks in Smash Brothers, the just flurry of blades kind of stuff.
1,000-hand slap from
Anaconda. Yeah. I love that shit. And weirdly don't like SMGs in games.
Yeah. Which are definitely 1,000-hand slaps. Because in games you want to do more than slap. A fighting game, they can just make it arbitrary. Like, this tiny little feather touch. Like, I suggest feather touch. And it does like decent damage. And then in real video games, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
Let's see here. Yeah. Sean writes, weird question. Y'all frequently reference Pregante or something similar, and I cannot for the life of me recall what it is from. It is also uniquely ungoogleable.
It is hard to Google. There is a YouTube guy who did it, who has 2 videos. I don't know if they are canceled or anything. So if they are, I'm not endorsing them. Basis, but they did 2 YouTube videos of mispronunciations. One of them is about pregnant. It's very funny. Like, how many women per year get pregnant? Things like that. They're just Yahoo answers. And then I found a follow-up one, which is about Ouija boards. And that one's great. Like, is okay to burn the Luigi board? Like, just great Yahoo questions. So if you put in like Yahoo questions pregnant into YouTube, you'll find it. And then I also recommend watching the Ouija board one. It's very good.
Yeah. The YouTube video that this is pulled from is called How is Prangant Formed?
Yeah, Prangant. How to get Prangant. It's just enjoying words.
Yes.
You know, like is all it is. So again, I hope that person is not a monster.
Yeah.
Final question here. Eli says, with the release of RE4 Make, it's officially Resident Evil Spring. I've been playing, watching, and listening to all things Resident Evil. I recently picked up the audiobook Itchy Tasty, The Unofficial History of Resident Evil by Alex Aniel, aka CVX Freak, somebody who's done a bunch of GameFAQs stuff, and was wondering if either of you have read this.
I am now 1,000 times more interested knowing that it's CVX Freak who wrote it. I have heard of that book before, but I didn't know that connection. I figured it was just some guy who decided to write the history. Yeah, if it's CVX Freak, I'm down, but I have not listened to it.
No, I haven't checked that either. That sounds really cool. I'm, going to have to get a copy at some point of that. The hardcover is pretty expensive right now, but the paperback's fine. Reasonable. I'll take a look. Yeah. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's read responses.
Indeed we shall. Quick reminder just to everybody to keep these brief and specific.
Yeah.
If at all possible. Nobody's getting the wrist slapped or anything. Don't want anybody to feel bad, but just it is good to keep these breezy and down to specific observations.
Yeah. About 2 paragraphs, I would say, makes the ideal kind of response. Yeah. So just want to let folks know that way we can fit as many people in. Honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get started here. We're talking about ender lilies. We got a lot of responses about ender lilies, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also kind of a corollary to that. And then to the last point, please, it's our intent to hurt anyone's feelings if we don't read your response as well. It just means the basic gist of it was covered by somebody else.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Patches writes, I wrote in about Axiom Verge when you all covered it years ago to say that what I like about a Metroidvania-like versus a Castlevania-like is that Metroids really lean into different damage shapes. And I think that's one of the places where Ender Lilies is great. Sure, I ended up with a few spirits I really liked as a build, but that each spirit was pretty distinct and had some lore tidbits made hunting them down feel worthwhile.
I agree. That's a cool thing about Ender Lilies.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. No, it just it's weird that you're associating that more with Metroid because the specific damage shapes, like damaging something up and to the right or
sub weapons.
Yeah, I think the sub weapons, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, big shout out to Patches who, when we found out we were doing Ender Lilies, told me not to do the secret endings, that it wasn't worth it, and I forgot. And then did it anyway. So I really fucked up. Yeah, I just forgot. Like, my memory is getting way worse. I'm getting old. Yeah. I feel like I used to have I kind of prided myself on my memory. I had a pretty good memory, and now I don't. So I apologize for that. Chapel says, Ender Lilies irritated the shit out of me. It had been on my wish list for a long time, and when y'all said you were doing it for the show, I was excited for an excuse to play it. I hated it almost right away. This game made me realize how important an aesthetic is to me, and had me making very unfavorable comparisons to one of my favorite games of all time, Blasphemous. In Ender Lilies, the first 30 minutes has you walking through a boring-ass brown and gray village, while a baby goo goo gaga over deep _ piano.wave plays. In Blasphemous, the first 30 minutes has you walking past crucified pixel monsters with their full bush and tush blowing out in the wind. The old bush and tush. And how boring is The Blight? Even grading on a scale for proper noun lore events, that's bad. Again, compared to Blasphemous's The Miracle. Both are pretty generic, vaguely defined apocalyptic forces, but whereas The Miracle has a little bit of irony built in and ties into Blasphemous's theme of the cruelty of religion, The Blight is just the bad juju. Souls-like games often feel like original songs written by a tribute band. They love their inspirations, but don't really have anything new to say.
That is a really good analogy.
Yeah. Well put there.
Yeah.
Like Ender Lilies, which to me, like a solid C, like I had some fun with it, is fine. Not going to think about it very much. We talked about this in the episode, suffers incredibly as soon as you bring out any other 2D Souls-like.
Yep.
Like comparing it to Blasphemous, like you're right. Like I think we probably pulled out Death's Gambit more in the episode. Yeah. But yeah, comparing it to Blasphemous in terms of flavor is fucking absolutely hell damning to it. Like,
yeah, I mean, not a lot's going to stand up to Blasphemous in terms of flavor.
That's the exact thing. It's a nuclear bomb, and then it's like a fly.
Yeah.
So like a gun would kill the fly, a fly swatter would kill the fly, but it's absolute overkill. Like totally eclipses it. Yeah. I don't think there's one thing flavor wise that Ender Lilies does that Blasphemous doesn't do better.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Or Grime, even. Shit.
Or I fucking love Grime. The 2D Souls-like split space is really competitive. Weirdly competitive. A lot of those are pretty good.
Yeah. PJ writes, I played this game initially through Garrett and got the Great Hammer, my main weapon for the rest of the game, and then fell off pretty hard due to difficulty backtracking, searching for secrets, and just not knowing if I was bad at platforming or didn't have the necessary skill. About a month later, you said that you were playing it for WOFF, and my wife said that we should that she would play with me so I could finish the game. She's not into, quote, hard games, but she's played Horizon, Portal 1 and 2, Uncharted, and all the recent Tomb Raiders, so searching for 100% of hidden things is in her wheelhouse. I usually am also a find everything gamer, but every new action was so tedious to try in every unfinished room with no way to mark the room. That's the main reason that I dropped it. We got through the rest of the game and got 100%, which ended up being rewarding, but almost solely because we passed the controller back and forth together. I'm not really sure if I would have finished it on my own, which sounds a lot like your experience. I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Yeah. Yeah. It is one of those things too, to like clarify, like I didn't hate Ender Lilies personally. Yeah. I just, didn't like it that much.
Yeah.
Like it's fine. It's fine. But it would have been, I would have quit if it wasn't for the show.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
and just
for sure.
The other stuff is more interesting. Like, shit, man. Like every single one of those 2D Souls likes that we just named has DLC that I haven't played. Yeah,
I know. It burns me up inside. And hey, man, there's an Immortal Unchained DLC that's supposed to be pretty good that we never got around to.
Yeah.
I never thought about taking this kind of game and splitting up through couch co-op to share the burden. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Similar principle to watching a bad movie with somebody else, Yeah.
It makes it more fun. Eric says, I'm slightly conflicted about Ender Lilies because while I adore the atmosphere and vibes of it, I found that the play doesn't always quite live up to that side of the game for me, especially in the second half. I thought the game relied too much on combat gauntlets and rooms with locking doors and was just overall a little too punishing. In particular, the area with the poison atmosphere felt like a bit of a bridge too far. That said, even with those complaints, I ended up loving the game. The music is melancholy and beautiful and was one of my favorite game soundtracks of 2021. The gorgeous visuals do an excellent job of setting a matching mood and tone, and I became very attached to the story and Lily herself, even getting a little emotional during the final boss and ending. Ender Lilies is basically sad piano music in the rain, the game, and that is 100% my shit. I know he's going to love the game the instant that you step out in the rain near the beginning in the White Parish and the main theme kicks in for the first time. I can definitely understand the game not landing for everyone as it does have flaws, but to me, they mostly fade in the background as I bathe in the sad, haunting atmosphere.
I don't think Eric listens to us anymore after hearing us clown on that White Parish music.
That specifically, I was going to say at first when it was just the soundtrack, I was like, it is a good soundtrack overall.
Yeah.
But that sad piano, and really the piano isn't the part, it's the baby vocals.
Yeah.
That make me want to die. and not listen to it. But then again, this is like the weird hold my beer month, because I finished Under Lilies. I was like, man, that was pretty fucking mid. And then Sexy Brutal, which I hated. And then in Underlays, like, I'm like, man, I fucking hate that song. And then the choreo was like, did somebody say my name? Who comes on a fight now? And just
you're the devil down the well, and he brings up bad water.
Like, it's just like non-stop, the worst needle drops I've ever heard in my life. It ended up being a weird month for that shit, man. Like,
hey, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. Do a soundtrack swap of those two games.
Oh my god. Zane writes, I agreed with all of your complaints about Ender Lilies, but let me add one more. The manufactured pathos they crammed in after bosses. After winning a hard fight, I was rewarded with a vignette which tried to get me to empathize with the boss and their former life. I was reminded of the anime Demon Slayer, where our good sword boy, all capitalized, kills demons. The demon reveals a tragic backstory, and Sword Boy feels bad about it. And this is held up as a great advancement in storytelling. The game, like the anime, plays this card too often for it to work, and it feels manipulative and cheap. Dark Souls made us empathize with Gwyn and Vendrick and others because the games saved this trick for big moments, and because we knew something about these characters before we encountered them rather than after.
That is a very good point.
Yes.
It makes me wonder whether that is a shonen trope, because the first thing that makes me think of that, like, here is your backstory after you beat a boss, is Metal Gear, which at the time was very, interesting.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like this person's actually just a sad freak.
Yeah.
They're not mean. But in retrospect, I much prefer you get to know the person before fighting them.
Yeah.
Like that boss background knowledge is done better through FromSoft than any of those other examples, I think. Like, especially, and they do cool things, like you're going through an environment that teaches you about them, what they're like. And then when you finally meet them, that can be used for anticlimax with Gwyn or Vendrick, or for climax.
Yeah.
Like you go through, you eventually meet the Nameless King.
Yeah.
At the, something like that. And you go through this area that explains everything about him. It's so much stronger to do it that way than to be like, surprise, the person, this naked woman, she was forced to eat concrete as a child, that you learn after you fight them, because Kojima is a hack.
It's just, it's cheap, right? It's
like,
okay. What?
And another thing about Kojima, but no, yeah, it's a hack. It's gotcha.
Yeah.
You fought him.
It's like, like just overspicing with unearned guilt. It is a cheap way to add the signifiers of emotional complexity. Yeah.
There's a good way to do that too, and the way that you do that is you pepper in. You can do it without having it be the Dark Souls way, and pepper it in through tone.
Yes.
See Shadow of the Colossus. Like, even before the reveal, what you're doing feels kind of sad and wrong.
Yeah.
In that game, and they just do it through music and animations and stuff. Like, it's not just like, imagine if the Colossus fell down and then just told you how it was forced to eat concrete as a child.
Words are what it comes down to is words are very cheap.
Yeah.
And they, like you can put as much in that violates the, show don't tell, kind of thing.
Yes.
And it'll pass muster for enough folks. I don't think I'm better, because I've definitely fallen for some of these in the past, but like, words are cheap. You can just throw in dialogue that it indicates exactly how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah. It's anything that is that obvious is that cheap, but words are the cheapest.
Yes.
Like I will also sometimes resent music that's like, time to be sad now.
Plink
music
plonk.
that pops up. Plink plonks. Welcome to the plink plonk zone. This is telling you the emotion to have. Like, I don't particularly like that either. But it's way worse if a character just says, hey, actually, just so you know, I was really sad before you killed me. FYI, you monster.
Oh man.
Moving on to Sexy Brutal. statements. Daniel here says, I replayed Sexy Brutale once I heard it was coming up on the show. I still find it to be a fun, small puzzle box of a game. I do think its story overreaches far beyond what it earns. When the player's mask comes off and it turns out that you too are the owner of the mansion the shark had been truly jumped, diced, and served on a bed of rice. No hard feelings over y'all hating my sponsored game. Oh, Daniel, sponsor this. Thank you, Daniel. Your ranty episodes are some of the funniest ones to listen to, so I'm looking forward to it. I do want to know, though, where does this sit compared to Soul Reaver? Because it usurps what I recall as one of the most loathed games played on WoFF. I will take that Raspberry Award as a badge of honor. I'm glad Daniel did no hurt feelings. Absolutely none intended. It is a nightmare scenario that somebody sponsors a game and then we don't like it. And then they were very generous with us and all we did was hurt their feelings. Like the alternative is unacceptable too, but it just, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Same.
So I'm very glad that Daniel did not seem to have that. And I would say that Sexy Brutale goes down a lot easier than Soul Reaver.
Yes.
Soul Reaver, you spend a lot of time controlling a guy that's hard to control and doing puzzles that are dumb. Like it's much longer.
It's incredibly repetitive.
Yeah. The other hand, Soul Reaver was also a product of its time. This is not. Yeah. This is modern. They could have done anything. So it's pretty tricky to like figure out which one I think is a worse game for me.
Kind of judging it by two different standards because of the distance between when they came out. I think Sexy Brutale is more misguided as a product. It doesn't justify itself as much as Soul Reaver did back in the day.
It also didn't break my heart because I liked Soul Reaver when I played it as a kid, and then came back to it and was like, this fucking dog shit. So I didn't have that feeling to it. But for me, it's a real bottom 10. Kind of WoFF game, but I'm also putting on trial for a lot of things about vibes based game. Yeah. So,
Dylan writes, the episode on the Sexy Brutale, which would be an amazing name for a 1983 speed metal band, made me think about how adventure games must be one of the hardest genres to make a real quote game experience out of. On the one end, you have your so obvious it's insulting gameplay that might get by on pretty images, but fails as a wireframe, which the Sexy Brutale falls under. But on the other end, you have what I call the walkthrough simulators, games that are so opaque with ridiculous logical leaps that you're not so much playing a game as following instructions. Both of these reduce the player's experience to little more than a straight line, as exploration is either obviated or made intolerable. But that glorious sweet spot in between the two makes for amazing games. I didn't really play many adventure games growing up in the 90s, but I've surprised myself with how much I've got into them over the last year. The Last Door, Kindergarten, Devotion, Strangeland, and World of Horror feel like they get that balance. The Last Door in particular felt super accessible in reducing the point-and-click possibility space while still challenging the players to intuit connections. Thanks for the episode, even if I have less interest in playing the Sexy Brutale than I do listening to a modern Megadeth album.
Yeah, that is the balance, right? There are games even on that list that I feel like don't actually hit that balance. Like I don't remember being too engaged puzzle-wise like in Devotion. Which is a game I fucking loved. It was just a movie that I really thought was a great movie. A little bit more than that, but it was closer to that because I had the continuum. But it is a balance, right? Like, you don't want to with games that have like the moon logic thing. Let me re-rack. With games that have the moon logic thing, the thing that I find in my experience is that it's one or two puzzles that are pure moon logic. Yeah. But in those, I still get a nice cruising altitude of puzzles that are a little bit more demanding than a Devotion, The Last Door, but aren't walkthrough simulators. Yeah. So even Gabriel Knight 3, which is where the ultimate king of moon logic adventure games, the poster child for that, has that ridiculous cat hair puzzle, but it also has all of the stuff with the computer. Yes. With charting out the grail locations, which was just like a good puzzle. There's no caveat to that. That's a good puzzle. Yeah. There. I find that the lion's share of adventure games that get that criticism thrown at them, it's only a few puzzles that really do it. Yeah. And you're going to spend a lot of time in a good challenging space.
Big standout. Yeah. 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 I don't know that I have too much more to add other than I need to go back and dip back into World of Horror because a lot of content has been added.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still looking forward to playing that at some point.
Yeah.
Have not played it. Moving on to The Quarry. Malachi says, my wife and I have recently been on a horror kick. This game did a great job of scratching that itch, even though I thought it was overall flawed. These flaws range from minor UI hiccups, like maybe brief descriptors with each interactable object, so I at least know what I'm going to be getting into, to more major annoyances like decision options not being clear. Deciding for Jacob not to splash shouldn't mean drag Emma under. And choosing run shouldn't mean Laura should kill power to the whole fucking house and let the werewolf out. I also feel like the ending was kind of a wet fart. The only camper I wasn't able to save was Max. I made the stupid decision to let him try to swim to shore, leaving the island, which is essentially an anti-werewolf shield. A stupid misstep on my part. My punishment? Look at his dead body for 10 seconds during the ending montage. There's no closure to anything, except for if each character lived or died. In doing some research after playing, it turns out there are over 130 different endings. I really feel like the quantity over quality approach really had a negative effect on the overall product. I don't think it's the quantity, like they didn't sacrifice quality for quantity of endings. That's just if you have that many different combinations of survivors.
Yeah.
It's more they just don't, it needs a coda. It's missing a falling action part.
Yeah.
You know?
See the episode where we talk about the relationships between these characters being the thing that got us the most interested in them, and then having that just not be addressed at all. How they may have been changed by the circumstances of the night, you know?
Yeah. Otherwise, well said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Doug writes, I previously wrote in on the Until Dawn episode to sing the praises of the multiplayer implemented in the Dark Pictures games. In my mind, those are the preferred way to play those games, as the collaboration and perspective shifts in the multiplayer versions of the stories best mirrors horror movie tropes. Unfortunately, this system was not put into The Quarry. The multiplayer is more like a watered-down version of Super Mario Galaxy, where the second player's only function is to alert the primary player to interactable objects in the environment by shining a light on them. So when my buddy and I sat down to enjoy a new multiplayer experience, we were sorely disappointed, but decided on a backup remote system where we would switch off who was in control. It wasn't the same, but it was the best substitute that we could think of. Really looking forward to your coverage, as always, and hopefully you enjoyed it with a big... I don't know what that means.
It's a reference to Werewolves of London.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed it with a big dish of beef chow mein from Holy Fuchs.
Yeah. That is the Werewolves of London.
I didn't recognize that lyric. Yeah.
Yeah, the a really crappy cover of a really great Kid Rock song. I don't actually believe that. It's just
Did Kid Rock really cover Werewolves of London?
Yeah, he did. I think it's Kid Rock. They like didn't cover. He did like the sampled, just sang new crap over it. Did that thing, just the whole song presented without change, which is new lyrics.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah.
I have not messed around with the multiplayer in these other, I just do the couch co-op. Committee decision. And it's a different weird secret co-op for it. But Will has talked about those a lot, like the way that the Dark Pictures games do co-op and how it's really neat.
It's super cool. Had a chance
to try it
because you play as opposite ends of the same conversation, so both players are picking dialogue and reactions. It's pretty neat, actually.
That's cool. Yeah. I imagine I've never done it, but because I've only played a single player, but Divinity Original Sin 1 has a similar thing where you have conversations that you get into with people and you can have different opinions on it. And then you do a rock, paper, scissors to see which way you go.
Yeah.
So neat. Moving on here. And this is, hold on, my Google document is being weird. The frames always end up being odd for this. Whose comment is this?
Naveen.
Naveen says, I was so excited to hear that you guys are going to cover The Quarry, one of my favorite games from last year. Supermassive Games has become one of my favorite developers for a variety of reasons, but mostly because they create short, no-fail experiences that feel less like you're taking on a project, looking at you, 40 to 60 hour AAA game du jour, and more like you're over here to have a fun experience and move on. Consequently, even their 6 out of 10 games, like Little Hope, are still fun times, especially with someone next to you to react to all the wild stuff happening on screen. Thankfully, The Quarry is not a 6 out of 10. is easily the studio's best work since Until Dawn, in my opinion. The story felt sufficiently malleable, with the necessary constraints and linearity cleverly hidden, at least on a first playthrough. The casting was almost all perfect, and the use of Hollywood talent, though recognizable, never got in the way of the story being told. Playing the game on a Series X also let the graphics really sell the environments and character models. I don't think Supermassive will ever get completely out of the uncanny valley, but their engine appears to get more lifelike, or at least less distracting, with each passing game. Interestingly, the game remains locked at 30 FPS on current gen consoles, but I appreciate it as an artistic choice here. It kept the filmic quality to everything, which, along with the film grain filter, also sold the atmosphere quite well. I do hope we see more of these big budget narrative games in the future. Not only horror, of which many tropes and subgenres remain unexplored, but also like to see a playable romantic comedy or tense courtroom thriller using a similar structure. Are there any other genres, settings, or other aspects of film you'd like Supermassive or another studio to tackle in a game like this?
Man, courtroom drama would be real fun.
That's a fun one. Like in the episode, we talked about how horror is really perfect for this, and I agree. Like I think a romantic I still agree with that. Like a romantic comedy would be tricky.
Yeah.
Right. Like you'd have to write a lot of funny lines.
You really would.
That's hard to do. But a courtroom drama would be a really cool idea. And there's kind of versions of narrative, other genre things through Golden Age Telltale stuff.
Yeah.
So like that Tales from the Borderland game everyone likes, like I don't like that quite as much as everyone else does, but I played the first episode and liked it. And it is a comedy adventure. Yeah. That has legitimate smile out loud moments in it.
It's a hard question to answer because I am who I am and I love horror so much anyway. It just happens to be that there's a whole studio devoted to making this kind of thing that I eat up.
Yeah. You could do some hybrid stuff. Yeah. Like some sci-fi horror. You could do some horror comedy, I feel like. Like they're already kind of horror comedy, but you know what I mean? Lean into it more.
Yeah, the next Dark Pictures is going to be space horror kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Sci-fi deal.
I'll be curious.
Yeah.
As to how that works. I would like to see them try it. But as also mentioned, I also need a break from these for a little bit. Because we've done a lot of them recently.
All things in time. And locking it at 30 frames per second is good. Although the coward should have locked it at 24 if they were going for filming stuff. Yeah.
I love a 30 FPS.
Yeah.
Put it in my veins. Let's announce what we're doing next time.
Let's do. So we've already announced the games that we are covering in May. So if you have thoughts about those, they are Norco, The Bard's Tale, the 1985 one.
Yeah. Not the re-snarked edition or whatever.
And also the premium episode for that month is going to be Super Mario Bowser's Fury.
Yes. Yeah. Going to be real fun. June's games, which we're ready to announce now. This is a fun stacked month. The first episode in June we're going to air our live show that we did at the Midwest Gaming Classic. This is an hour-long talk with Bob Mackey of Retronauts, as well as audience participation about the concept of 7 out of 10 games.
Yeah.
I could have talked about this for way longer. Like there's a lot more to this whole thing. It almost makes me want to like do this topic multiple times in live shows or like revisit it because it's really interesting. I think. That was a good fun time. And we got some spicy meatballs coming up at the end of the month. So we're making some space.
Yeah. The next game is Infernax. This is a modern indie a game with a throwback retro style that models itself after a game that most people have tried to forget, Zelda 2, but they shouldn't have forgotten it because, there's good ideas there to pull. Eventual WOFF game, undoubtedly. Yes.
Like that's kind of a break glass. Sickos break glass thing. Now we've done Castlevania 2. We can do whatever we want. This is a cold pick. I'm really excited to play it. I really want an excuse. Episode 400 of Watch Out for Fireballs.
Oh yeah, that's right. That is 400, isn't it? Yeah.
Episode 400, the big 400. This is a sponsored episode from a friend of the network, Julia. We're doing Pentiment.
Yeah, Obsidian game. Takes place in a medieval monastery. Lots of reading, lots of choices, lots of very heady discussions of faith. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm excited. I'm really glad that Obsidian, as somebody who who enjoys that studio, has gotten their kind of critical groove back.
Yeah.
After Grounded and Outer Worlds,
Mm-hmm.
which people felt were pretty mid, or worse. I know people hate those games.
Yeah.
I still have not played them, but I'm looking forward to playing this. I've wanted an excuse to play it since it came out.
Yeah.
And the only thing that stopped me from doing it was knowing we do it for the show.
Yeah. Almost assuredly.
And then probably surprising no one, our premium episode is the Resident Evil 4 remake.
Yeah. We got to get that in because it's
gotta
good.
get that in. It's so good. The generalities will be us talking about what's different, that, and then we'll go beat by beat through it. It is different enough. It's also for me at least, is going to be the game to beat this year in terms of like my game of the year shit. Like, I had so much fun playing that. It's going to be really hard to, I stopped it and then just immediately started New Game Plus and went through like 4 chapters.
Oh yeah.
Like I was just like, this is
good
home,
stuff,
baby. And I started a play of Resident Evil 4, the original, which I didn't get as far in, but just kind of to be like, I don't know, man. In a different universe, Resident Evil 4 could be my forever game. Like I could learn to speedrun it and shit. I love it so much. It just feels perfect. I don't, for me, there is no better action loop. Kneecap, suplex, knife, that good slow combat. Like it's I feel the same way about the rhythm of Resident Evil 4 combat that people do about Sekiro. Like there's no flailing, there's no instinct. It's all slowly lining up your shit, taking the shot and making it count. And it feels so good.
Managing movement, managing your corners. Fuck yeah.
Like, it makes absolute sicko, just pig and shit. Like absolute just piggy boy for RE4. Love it so much. They didn't fuck up the remake, and it's different enough.
Yeah. It'll be fun to kind of revisit and just kind of talk about why the original RE4 is not overridden by this. Yeah.
I'm so happy to have both. It's a stronger argument to me even than the Demon Souls remake for like the Holy Spaces remake argument. Like it's a lot less drastic than the RE2 remake, which is basically a different game.
Yeah.
But it just feels really good to see these things through new eyes. And I love Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
Why do they keep making games after that? I just they basically fixed it. I don't know. So if you want to write in about those, the deadline is June 15th at Duckfeed.tv/contact. If you are a not straight, not white, not cis, not dude person, and you'd like us to promote your project, send me an email at Gary@Duckfeed.tv. This episode, I want to shout out Audrey Brem's podcast, which is called Radio Free Tote Bag. This is a sex and relationship advice show, which is her and her co-host Donovan, and they take listener questions and do kind of bits and give advice. It sounds a little bit like what I was trying to do with Heartbeat City, but better. They've gotten a lot of cool people on the show. They got the lead singer of Eve 6 on there. Vic Berger is on an episode.
Oh shit.
Which sounds super cool. You can find this anywhere you look for Radio Free Tote Bag. So check that out. They're on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find out any podcast service.
That's a really good name for a show.
It's a really great name for a show. It sounds great. Like it sounds really interesting. So thank you for reaching out, Audrey. If you have our product or a project you'd like us to shout out, that is the way to do it. Send me an email and we'll shout you out.
Yeah. If you would like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv and get bonus content. That's how you get to the full versions of the premium episodes, the RE4 remake, and Bowser's Fury, but also all of the previous ones as well.
Yes. And future ones.
Yeah, and future ones. No more. The last one. Yeah. But that's at the $5 tier, along with a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. We like to think it's worth it. You get a lot for your buck.
Yeah.
Please rate and review and subscribe on your podcast directory of choice, where you can find us. And as always, big thanks to Gwen, our producer, who we love and who does great work for us.
Yeah. Trying to think of other stuff, but I can't.
We'll see you next week with Norco.
Yeah, we will.
Umbasa. La Fasa. Umbasa. La Fasa.